The galaxy had always looked at Earth with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. For centuries, humans had struggled to leave their own planet, while other civilizations had mastered interstellar travel and explored countless systems. Alien broadcasts often laughed at Earth, calling it a backward planet, a place where humans still fought over small conflicts while the rest of the galaxy moved on. The Draconian Empire, the most feared and powerful force in the Orion Belt, made Earth a favorite target of ridicule. They broadcast messages across nearby star systems, showing Earth as a weak, laughable world. Every new satellite launch, every attempt at deep space exploration, was met with mockery. Humans were small, slow, and fragile. Their weapons were outdated, their fleets tiny, and their colonies barely able to survive on Mars or in orbital habitats. To the Draconians, Earth was nothing more than a planet to laugh at. But beneath the surface of this ridicule, something was quietly changing. On Earth, the laughter did not go unnoticed. For every public display of contempt, humans responded not with anger but with determination. Scientists, engineers, and explorers began working tirelessly. They redesigned ships, studied alien technology, and pushed human knowledge further than ever before. Every insult became motivation, every mockery a reason to prove the galaxy wrong. The world's military forces were small compared to other powers, but they had something those who mocked them underestimated: human ingenuity and patience. Even the ordinary citizens of Earth felt the tension. News reports carried stories of alien derision, and though the words were harsh, they sparked a quiet pride. Children in schools learned not just math and history, but also the importance of resilience. Young pilots and engineers stayed up all night in labs and simulators, dreaming of the day Earth could no longer be dismissed. People understood that the galaxy would not give them respect easily. They had to earn it silently, piece by piece. The Draconians believed that humans were naive and fragile, and that under pressure they would fold like paper. But humans had been underestimated many times before, and every time the result was the same: survival, adaptation, and eventual triumph. Meanwhile, the Draconian Empire continued its grand displays of superiority. Their fleets were enormous, filled with ships armed with powerful weapons and shielded by technologies unknown to humanity. They sent ambassadors to Earth speaking with haughty tones, offering protection in exchange for submission. They held council sessions in distant star systems, often projecting images of Earth's tiny fleets for all to see. Their generals laughed, comparing human ships to toys and colonies to childlike experiments. Most members of the Galactic Council considered humans insignificant, not worth the effort of diplomacy or attention. But the humans' silence in response to the mockery was beginning to raise subtle doubts in some corners of the galaxy. On Earth, strategic centers buzzed with activity. The military, scientists, and engineers worked together in ways previously unseen. Satellite arrays were upgraded, communication networks encrypted, and fleets designed in secret. Humans tested energy weapons, propulsion systems, and AI-assisted command protocols. Every experiment, every test was small at first, almost invisible to outsiders. Yet it was deliberate. Humanity was learning to fight not with brute force, but with intelligence, speed, and strategy. Their ships were being built not to impress, but to survive and to strike at the right moment. Life on Earth went on with a quiet tension. People in cities, towns, and colonies barely noticed the growing readiness of humanity's forces. Children played, markets thrived, and schools continued, while above them, satellites and stations worked silently. Ordinary citizens did not fully understand the scale of what was being prepared. They only knew that the galaxy's laughter had grown louder, and in return, humans had started to change. Scientists spoke in hushed tones about breakthroughs in energy shields, faster-than-light communication, and stealth technology. Pilots trained in simulations that no human had ever flown in real battles. And every small success, every secret achievement built confidence not just in the scientists or the military, but in the whole species. The ridicule was not always public. Some Draconian agents came quietly to Earth under false pretenses, observing humans and reporting back to their leaders. They described human settlements, studying the planet's resources, and often reported that the species was primitive, predictable, and weak. But even these undercover missions noticed something odd. Humans adapted quickly. When unexpected problems arose, humans found solutions others could not anticipate. When faced with danger, humans did not panic. They assessed, recalculated, and acted. Some agents began to whisper to one another that the species might be underestimated at its own risk. But such doubts were easily dismissed by those higher in command, who still saw Earth as a laughingstock. As the years passed, humanity's progress accelerated. Secret projects launched in orbital habitats tested new propulsion systems. Artificial intelligence was integrated into strategy planning, giving human commanders an advantage in predicting enemy movements. Fleets once tiny were being replaced by vessels capable of holding energy shields far beyond what the Draconians expected. Communication networks spanned the solar system, connecting Earth, Mars colonies, and asteroid stations in ways that allowed near-instant coordination. And yet all of this was invisible to the galaxy at large. From the outside, Earth still appeared small, unprepared, and laughable. For humans, this invisibility was a gift. They were free to build, test, and prepare without interference. Every failure was a lesson, every success a hidden victory. Engineers celebrated quietly when a prototype ship exceeded expectations. Pilots rejoiced in simulations where their fleet outmaneuvered far larger alien vessels. And civilians supported these efforts in every way they could, through research, logistics, and morale. There was a growing sense that the galaxy had made a mistake. It had mocked a species that was learning, evolving, and preparing silently for the day it would no longer be underestimated. The Draconian Empire continued to broadcast its insults. Unaware of the storm that was quietly growing on the horizon, Earth remained outwardly peaceful, its citizens calm, even cheerful, while above them the networks, fleets, and stations prepared for an unknown future. It was not anger that drove humanity. It was a steady, unwavering determination. Every mockery was remembered. Every slight was stored in human memory as motivation. The galaxy may have laughed at them, but humans had learned to turn laughter into strength. Even ordinary moments carried the weight of this preparation. Farmers in distant settlements learned to manage resources with precision that would make alien economists envious. Teachers instilled in children not only knowledge but a quiet pride in human resilience. Engineers and pilots trained tirelessly, knowing that every hour of effort might one day determine survival. And all of this was done without spectacle or announcement. The world did not need to boast. It only needed to be ready, and so Earth waited. The Draconians continued their ridicule, confident that the planet would bend under pressure. They broadcast images of Earth's small fleets and colonies as if the galaxy needed a lesson in superiority, yet beneath the surface humans prepared quietly, steadily, and with patience. Every insult had been recorded, every joke catalogued, and every underestimation remembered. One day the galaxy would realize that it had misjudged humanity. That day would not be announced with fanfare, and it would not be visible from light years away. It would arrive with precision, planning, and force that no one could ignore. The species they mocked, the planet they dismissed, would show the galaxy that quiet patience, ingenuity, and determination could be more powerful than fleets and weapons. For now, humans lived their lives, worked their jobs, and pursued their dreams. But behind the scenes, every step of preparation continued. The galaxy might have laughed, but the quiet work of centuries was turning into something far greater than anyone imagined. Humanity had learned the most important lesson of all. Never underestimate the ones who are quietly learning, quietly preparing, and quietly waiting. The Draconians believed they were untouchable, that Earth was a joke. But Earth had a secret, and it was growing stronger every day. The mockery would not end in humiliation. It would end in a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. The galaxy had long underestimated Earth, and the Draconian Empire had made it clear that they considered humans weak and laughable. But they were about to test their assumptions in a way that no one could have predicted. It began quietly, with a single fleet of human explorers accidentally entering Draconian-controlled space. They had not intended to provoke the Empire. Their mission was simple: explore the edges of the system, gather data, and return home. Yet even this small movement drew the attention of Draconian scouts. The Empire acted swiftly, broadcasting a message across nearby star systems. The humans had trespassed, and they would face the consequences. The Draconian High Command saw it as an opportunity to humiliate Earth publicly. Their messages were filled with pride and derision, warning that any resistance would be crushed instantly. The Galactic Council watched, amused. Many members laughed openly, confident that Earth would obey, that the humans would bow without a fight. They expected a simple surrender, a confirmation that humans were too small to resist, but Earth did not answer. There was no apology, no retreat, no panic, only silence. For the Draconians, this was confusing. They expected immediate fear, trembling, and submission. What they did not understand was that humans often acted differently than other species in the galaxy. Silence did not mean weakness. Silence could mean planning. Silence could mean patience. Back on Earth, the silence was not idle. Military command centers buzzed with activity. Scientists and engineers moved with urgency and precision. Every fleet, every station, every orbital facility was prepared for any scenario. They did not panic. They did not rush blindly. They calculated, they tested, they adjusted. Every human involved knew the stakes, and every human understood that this was a moment that could define their species for generations. The first communications from the Draconian Empire were harsh and condescending. "You have trespassed into our territory," their message began. "Your species is fragile, weak, and ignorant. Any defiance will result in your destruction. You have been warned." They broadcast the message with pride, confident that the galaxy would watch Earth crumble under pressure. But on Earth, the message was received with calm, almost indifferent focus. Military analysts studied it, looking for weaknesses. Scientists discussed what the Draconians had revealed about their strategies. Fleet commanders calculated response times, firing ranges, and fleet formations. There was no fear in their actions. There was only preparation. The humans knew the Empire was powerful, but they also knew that power could be challenged with intelligence, planning, and precision. In orbital stations, engineers worked on ships designed to move faster and strike harder than anyone would expect. They tested new energy shields, advanced propulsion systems, and stealth technologies. Pilots trained in simulations that mirrored Draconian tactics, learning to anticipate every possible maneuver. What outsiders saw as small, fragile fleets were actually highly coordinated, optimized forces ready to respond to threats with speed and efficiency. Meanwhile, civilians went about their daily lives unaware of the full scale of preparations. Cities thrived, schools continued, and families lived peacefully. But there was a quiet understanding that the humans of Earth were no longer the same species the galaxy thought they were. Every insult, every mocking broadcast had been turned into motivation. Humans were learning, adapting, and growing stronger in ways invisible to the Draconians. The Draconian Empire, confident in its superiority, decided to escalate the situation. They sent a fleet of ships to Earth's nearby colonies, demanding obedience and submission. They expected humans to panic, to beg for mercy, or to surrender immediately. The fleet broadcast messages filled with condescension, showing images of Earth's small stations and weak defenses, and laughing at the supposed absurdity of resistance. But humans remained silent. There was no fear. There was no rush to fight. Instead, they observed, calculated, and prepared. Every movement of the Draconian fleet was tracked. Every communication was monitored and decrypted. Humans had developed ways to predict enemy behavior, to anticipate attacks before they occurred. The silence that frustrated the Draconians was not ignorance. It was strategy. Onboard human stations, fleet commanders held briefings in dimly lit rooms. Charts covered the walls showing Draconian ship movements, energy outputs, and potential weak points. Scientists adjusted weapon systems in real time, simulating attacks that no other species could have imagined. Pilots rehearsed maneuvers in virtual reality, moving their ships through invisible paths designed to confuse and trap the enemy. The humans knew that the Draconians underestimated them, and they intended to use that underestimation as their advantage. Despite the tension, humans maintained calm. Their actions were deliberate and controlled, never impulsive. Even as the Draconian fleet moved closer, they did not panic. Engineers monitored energy flows, ensuring that weapon systems were ready and that shields could withstand the strongest attacks. Every step was measured, every decision carefully weighed. Humans understood that fear could lead to mistakes. Precision and patience were far more valuable than panic or aggression. The first confrontation came when a Draconian scout ship approached one of Earth's orbital stations. The humans did not fire immediately. Instead, they observed the ship, collecting data on its speed, shields, and weapon systems. When the Draconian crew attempted to provoke them with messages of mockery, human operators remained silent. They had learned the importance of patience. Provocation did not require a response. Observation did. Meanwhile, across the globe, scientists worked on long-range communication networks capable of coordinating the entire fleet without detection. These systems allowed Earth to act as one unified force even across vast distances. What the Draconians saw as a small planet with scattered stations was actually a networked powerhouse, capable of anticipating and responding to threats in ways that seemed impossible. In addition to technology, humans relied on creativity and adaptability. They studied Draconian tactics and considered ways to turn the Empire's strengths into weaknesses. Every move was tested in simulations hundreds of times. Scenarios were run that accounted for weather, orbital shifts, energy fluctuations, and even unexpected human errors. By the time the Draconians made their first aggressive approach, humans were ready in every possible way. The tension built across the solar system as the Draconian fleet approached. Reports from nearby stations indicated their massive numbers, their advanced weapons, and their confidence. Yet even as the fleet drew closer, humans did not act recklessly. They moved with quiet coordination, positioning ships in ways that were invisible to enemy sensors. They deployed drones and stealth probes to track fleet movements, and all the while, they waited for the right moment to reveal their capabilities. One by one, the Draconian ships entered positions where they expected easy victory. They broadcast messages full of mockery, projecting images of human colonies and ships, laughing at the supposed absurdity of any resistance. But the humans remained silent. Every ship was in position, every shield activated, every weapon calibrated. The Draconians did not realize that they were being guided into an invisible trap, one that relied on patience, intelligence, and precision rather than brute force. On Earth, children continued to play, unaware of the unfolding events above them. Workers commuted to their jobs, engineers adjusted systems, and scientists ran final checks. There was no chaos, no panic. Humans had learned to handle pressure calmly, to turn moments of potential fear into opportunities for strategic advantage. And so, the stage was set. The Draconian Empire believed it held all the power. It believed that humans would bend or break under pressure. It believed that Earth was weak and fragile, just as it had been laughing for decades. But humans had waited, learned, and prepared quietly. The silence that frustrated the Draconians was the calm before a storm they could not imagine. When the first attack came, humans would be ready, not just to survive, but to change the galaxy's perception forever. The Empire had mocked them, dismissed them, and laughed at them. But the humans of Earth had learned the value of patience, observation, and preparation. They had learned that true strength was not always loud, visible, or aggressive. Sometimes it was quiet, unseen, and waiting for the perfect moment. For the first time, the Draconians would realize that underestimating humanity had been a dangerous mistake, and the galaxy would witness a species that had been laughed at rise with precision, intelligence, and courage. The mockery would not end in humiliation for humans. It would end in a lesson that no one could ignore. The Draconian Empire had grown confident. They had mocked Earth for decades, calling humans weak and primitive. They had gathered a massive fleet, armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen, and were ready to make an example out of the planet that dared to defy them. From orbiting observation posts, the humans could see the incoming fleet as a dark shadow, spreading across the void. It was intimidating, massive, and terrifying. Every ship was designed to destroy entire planets if needed. Yet on Earth there was no panic. There was no chaos. Humans had been preparing for this moment quietly for years, quietly turning their perceived weaknesses into strengths. In military command centers, scientists and engineers coordinated seamlessly with fleet commanders. Charts, holograms, and simulations filled the room, showing exactly where the Draconian ships would move, how fast they would travel, and what their weaknesses might be. Every detail had been considered, tested, and prepared for. The first warning came from orbital sensors detecting Draconian energy signatures far beyond the usual patrol routes. Every detail of the fleet was carefully logged. Humans watched in silence as the enemy ships formed lines, aligning themselves for the first strike. Draconian broadcasts filled the communications networks with threats and insults. They called humans fragile and unworthy, mocking the planet's small defenses and seemingly outdated technology. The words were intended to intimidate, to make humans panic, but humans did not respond. They didn't fire prematurely. They didn't scramble aimlessly. Instead, fleet commanders coordinated with scientists to run final calculations. Every energy shield, every propulsion system, and every weapon was tested one last time. Pilots prepared for maneuvers that no one outside Earth could imagine, practicing in simulations where the enemy always assumed humans would act with fear, and were wrong. Even the smallest orbital stations played a critical role. They transmitted encrypted signals, relaying information about Draconian ship movements across the solar system. They projected false energy signatures to confuse enemy sensors, creating the illusion of scattered defenses where there was a concentrated force. Every human, from engineers to pilots to analysts, worked as a single organism, each part moving in perfect harmony with the rest. As the Draconian fleet approached, it became clear that the humans were not just defending, they were setting a trap. The Empire believed that Earth's fleet was small, uncoordinated, and easy to destroy. They assumed that humans would panic under the pressure of superior firepower. But humans had studied their enemy for years. They knew how the Draconians thought, how they reacted, and how they expected resistance to occur. Every move of the invading fleet had been anticipated. The first strike came without warning. A Draconian cruiser fired long-range energy beams toward a human orbital station. The station's shields flared, absorbing the initial impact. From Earth, the sensors detected the attack and relayed information to the fleet. Humans responded instantly, activating stealth defense systems that made their positions almost invisible. Drones deployed from hidden bays, creating decoy signals and drawing enemy fire away from the main fleet. The Draconians were confused. Their sensors could not detect the true location of the human ships. They had expected immediate destruction, but every attack was countered, absorbed, or misdirected. Even as their massive fleet moved closer, they realized that the humans were not behaving as expected. Every defensive move, every countermeasure showed intelligence and strategy that the Draconians had not anticipated. On Earth, children played in parks, unaware of the chaos unfolding above them. Workers commuted, shops operated, and ordinary life continued. Yet above them, humans executed a level of coordination that would astonish any species. Engineers monitored every system, ready to reroute power, recalibrate shields, and launch countermeasures in milliseconds. Pilots navigated through invisible channels, avoiding enemy fire while positioning themselves for the perfect strike. The Draconian fleet attempted to concentrate its firepower, assuming that overwhelming force would crush the humans quickly. Massive ships unleashed energy beams, missiles, and destructive waves, targeting human stations and small fleets. But humans had designed their defenses to adapt. Shields adjusted automatically, deflecting attacks and absorbing energy. Weapon systems responded faster than human eyes could follow, intercepting missiles and redirecting beams. Every assault that should have caused panic only strengthened human confidence. For the first time, some Draconian commanders began to whisper doubts. They noticed anomalies in human behavior. Ships appeared in places they shouldn't exist. Energy signatures shifted unpredictably. Communications intercepted suggested coordination that no one outside Earth should have been capable of. Even so, higher command dismissed the concerns. They believed that humans were clever, yes, but still fragile. They expected Earth to break under continuous pressure, but humans were not fragile. They were patient. They waited for the right moment, observing every movement, calculating every possibility. Every insult and threat from the Draconians had been noted and analyzed. Every underestimated aspect of humanity had been turned into a potential advantage. The silence that had frustrated the Empire for so long was now a deadly strength. As the battle unfolded, small human ships began to strike back. At first it seemed almost invisible. Drones disabled enemy sensors, redirecting attacks harmlessly into space. Stealth vessels moved silently behind enemy lines, disabling engines and weapon systems. Energy pulses temporarily blinded the Draconian fleet's navigation, causing confusion and miscommunication. The humans did not need to destroy the fleet immediately. They needed only to show that they were no longer weak. Reports from the front lines indicated a level of efficiency and precision that stunned human commanders themselves. Despite the overwhelming size of the Draconian fleet, the humans executed their strategies flawlessly. Every ship knew its role. Every weapon fired with purpose, every movement calculated to maximize impact while minimizing risk. And all of this was done without panic, without rash decisions, without fear. The Draconians tried to retaliate with overwhelming force. They fired massive barrages of energy, hoping to break through the human defenses. Yet every attack was anticipated, deflected, or countered. Humans adapted instantly, using energy from one attack to power their own defenses or redirect it to weaken the enemy. It was not brute force. It was intelligence, patience, and adaptability that allowed humans to survive what should have been impossible. Even as the battle continued, ordinary humans on Earth remained unaware of the full scale of the conflict. Life went on, seemingly ordinary, while above them the species they belonged to proved that underestimation could be fatal. Citizens unknowingly contributed by maintaining infrastructure, supporting research, and keeping morale high. Every small action on the planet allowed the fleet to operate at peak efficiency. Humans had learned that strength came not only from technology or weapons, but from the collective effort of an entire species. The Draconians began to realize that their assumptions had been wrong. The humans were not fragile. They were not weak. They were resilient, intelligent, and coordinated in ways that the Empire had never expected. For the first time, fear crept into the ranks of the once confident fleet. Some ships hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. Commanders argued over tactics, realizing that their usual strategies were failing. The mockery that had defined decades of interaction suddenly became irrelevant. The humans were no longer a laughingstock. They were a force to be reckoned with. By the end of the initial engagement, the Draconian fleet had suffered confusion and minor losses. But more importantly, they had lost confidence. Every plan they had relied on had failed. The humans had not only survived, they had proven that the Empire could not predict or control them. From Earth, the silence remained. There were no triumphant broadcasts, no boastful messages. Humans had learned the power of calm precision, letting their actions speak louder than words ever could. For the first time in history, the Draconians faced a species they could not easily manipulate, predict, or humiliate. They had mocked Earth for centuries, believing it to be fragile and weak. But the reality was far different. Humans had turned the ridicule into motivation, patience into strategy, and underestimation into a weapon. The galaxy had laughed at them, but the humans had proven that quiet preparation could be more powerful than any overt display of force. The battle was far from over, but the first strike had shown the truth. Humans were no longer the species that could be dismissed, laughed at, or easily destroyed. They had learned the most important lesson of all. Strength was not always loud, obvious, or immediate. Sometimes it was silent, patient, and calculated, waiting for the right moment to change everything. Above all, humans understood that the galaxy had underestimated them. The Draconian Empire believed they held all the power, that humans would bend under pressure. But the humans had turned every insult into motivation, every threat into preparation, and every expectation of weakness into proof of resilience. The coming days would reveal how far their quiet strength could extend. But one thing was already clear. Earth was no longer a planet to mock. The Draconian Empire had never faced anything like it. Their fleet, massive and powerful, was trained to crush weaker civilizations in hours, if not minutes. Yet the humans of Earth had survived, striking back with precision and intelligence they had not expected. But the true surprise had yet to come. After the initial engagement, the Draconian fleets regrouped. Scanners were deployed across vast distances to detect any remaining human vessels, to ensure that the planet's defenses were not hiding a trap. Every ship moved carefully, anticipating attacks that the humans might have planned. They expected resistance, but they did not expect what happened next. Suddenly, the scanners went blank. Ships that had been moving in formation vanished from every sensor. Energy signatures that had been tracked and logged disappeared without a trace. Communications with smaller vessels stopped abruptly. It was as if entire fleets had evaporated into space. Panic rippled through the Draconian ranks. Commanders double-checked instruments, recalibrated sensors, and even attempted to hail the missing ships, but there was no response. Not a single signal. On Earth, the silence remained, but it was a controlled, deliberate silence. Humans had prepared for this moment for decades. Scientists and engineers had built systems capable of hiding the fleet's presence from even the most advanced scanners. Communications were routed through encrypted and unpredictable channels, making it nearly impossible for outsiders to trace or intercept. Human ships moved with such precision that they appeared invisible even when directly observed. The Draconians were confused and increasingly fearful. Their training had taught them that such large-scale disappearance was impossible without catastrophic failure. But no explosions, no debris, no evidence of destruction appeared. It was as if the ships had simply vanished into thin air. High-ranking commanders argued with one another, blaming malfunctions, sabotage, or even hallucinations. Still, none of the explanations made sense. Every sensor, every probe, every recording confirmed the same terrifying fact. The humans were gone. Or at least, completely undetectable. This was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. They were used to fear, yes, but fear of a hidden or invisible enemy on this scale was unprecedented. Analysts whispered that humans were unpredictable, but higher command refused to consider the possibility seriously. To them, the humans were fragile, still primitive, and incapable of such advanced technology. But as hours passed and fleets remained unaccounted for, doubt began to spread like wildfire. On Earth, life continued as usual. Yet the planet itself was alive with invisible activity. Human fleets moved silently through space, adjusting positions, analyzing enemy movements, and preparing for the next phase. Advanced cloaking and stealth technology made the ships appear as nothing more than empty voids on enemy sensors. Even the most experienced Draconian scouts could not detect them. Human commanders coordinated across vast distances with near-instant communication, creating a network of forces that functioned as a single, unified organism. Every detail had been meticulously planned. The humans had learned from centuries of being underestimated. They knew that the Draconians would assume weakness, that they would look for obvious threats, and that they would never expect such invisible coordination. It was a perfect example of patience, preparation, and intelligence combining to create a force far greater than what appearances suggested. The first signs of panic among the Draconians began subtly. Some ships hesitated to fire, unsure of whether targets were real or illusions. Others attempted to recalibrate sensors repeatedly, wasting precious time. Commanders ordered more scanning drones, hoping that sheer numbers would reveal the hidden humans. But each attempt failed. Every probe returned only blank space. Energy readings, gravimetric scans, and quantum detectors all were useless. Meanwhile, human engineers worked behind the scenes to maintain control over every system. They rerouted energy from disabled scanners, redirected sensors to false readings, and monitored every Draconian movement in real time. Pilots practiced maneuvers so precise that the Draconians could never predict their trajectory. It was not brute force that gave humans the advantage. It was intelligence, coordination, and the ability to think like the enemy while remaining invisible. Ordinary humans on Earth went about their days, unaware of the invisible war unfolding above them. Families lived in homes, children played in parks, and markets thrived. Yet every action taken by the population contributed indirectly to the preparation. Research facilities, communication hubs, and energy stations operated at peak efficiency, allowing the hidden fleet to function seamlessly. Humanity had learned that strength came not only from weapons and ships, but from the collective effort of an entire species. As days passed, the Draconian Empire attempted to regroup. They moved fleets cautiously, scanning for hidden threats and repositioning ships to cover gaps. Their confidence, once unshakable, was now replaced by suspicion and fear. Whispers spread among crews that the humans were capable of technologies that should have been impossible. Even the high command grew wary, realizing that underestimating Earth had been a critical error. On Earth, the fleet remained hidden, observing the enemy, learning their movements, and preparing for the next strike. Communication networks relayed real-time updates across vast distances, allowing ships to react instantly to any Draconian maneuver. Scientists monitored energy emissions and potential vulnerabilities, feeding information directly to fleet commanders. Every action was deliberate, every movement precise, and every human involved understood the importance of patience. The Draconians, meanwhile, tried to force the humans into a mistake. They launched decoy attacks, created false energy spikes, and attempted to trick Earth's fleet into revealing itself. But humans were not fooled. They anticipated each move, using decoys and countermeasures of their own. Each attack failed to provoke a reaction, only further frustrating the Draconian commanders. The silence of Earth's fleet had become a weapon more powerful than any cannon or missile. On board human ships, crew members worked tirelessly, monitoring every system, analyzing every Draconian movement, and preparing for the right moment to strike. Pilots maneuvered silently through space, using stealth technology to appear as nothing more than empty void. Engineers adjusted energy shields and propulsion systems in real time, ensuring that the fleet remained undetectable while fully operational. Scientists calculated potential threats and shared strategies with commanders, creating a network of intelligence that was unmatched in the galaxy. The Draconians began to lose cohesion. Ships that were once tightly coordinated started moving independently, unsure of where to aim or how to respond. Commanders argued over strategies, unsure whether to continue the search or retreat. The initial arrogance that had allowed them to mock Earth for centuries now seemed foolish in the face of a species they could neither detect nor understand. Despite the tension, humans maintained calm. There was no panic, no rash action, no overreaction. They had learned that true strength was not always obvious and that patience often outweighed aggression. Every day that the Draconians spent searching in vain, every moment they wasted recalibrating sensors or debating strategy, strengthened humanity's position. Eventually, the Draconian fleet began to retreat slightly, unwilling to risk further confusion or loss. They could not understand what had happened, and the fear of the unknown weighed heavily on their commanders. Meanwhile, humans remained hidden, observing and learning, preparing for the next phase. The planet itself seemed calm and ordinary, belying the incredible activity occurring in space above it. Earth had turned its greatest vulnerability into its greatest strength. The very thing the Draconians had mocked, the planet's small size, its limited resources, its seemingly fragile fleets, had become an advantage. Humans had shown that invisibility, patience, and intelligence could be far more effective than sheer force. The galaxy had assumed Earth was weak, but the events of these days had proven otherwise. For the Draconians, the lesson was terrifying. They had mocked a species for centuries, assuming it was fragile and easily dominated. Now they faced a reality they could neither predict nor control. Entire fleets could disappear without warning. Strategies that had never failed before had failed now. Their arrogance had blinded them to a simple truth. The humans of Earth were not to be underestimated. On Earth, life continued quietly. Ordinary citizens had no idea how close the galaxy had come to witnessing something extraordinary. Engineers, pilots, scientists, and commanders knew the truth. The humans had survived the first wave of attack and had done so with intelligence, patience, and coordination that no other species had ever demonstrated. Every insult, every mockery, every expectation of weakness had been turned into preparation, strength, and strategy. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet had left the galaxy stunned. Whispers spread across neighboring star systems, as scholars, merchants, and soldiers alike tried to understand how such a small, seemingly primitive planet could hide a force so advanced and capable. Earth had become a mystery, a symbol of patience, preparation, and hidden strength. For humans, the battle was far from over, but the first step had been taken. They had shown that their species was not weak. They had shown that the silence from Earth had changed everything. The Draconian Empire, once confident and mocking, was now cautious and unsure. Entire fleets had vanished from sight, and even the most advanced scanners could detect nothing. The galaxy was watching, curious and fearful, as rumors spread about the invisible strength of a species it had long underestimated. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of star systems crowded the hall, discussing the mysterious events near Earth. Some were concerned about the safety of their own planets. Others were eager to learn what humans had done to make such a powerful empire hesitate. Analysts presented reports showing that the Draconian fleet was in disarray, their confidence shaken. It was clear that the humans had turned the tables, but how they had done it remained a mystery. Meanwhile, Earth continued its quiet preparations. The hidden fleets moved in synchronized patterns, never revealing their true size or strength. Communication networks ensured that every command, every calculation, and every movement was coordinated across thousands of kilometers. Humans had learned that even the smallest mistakes could give away their position, so every action was precise, deliberate, and almost invisible. The first official human transmission to the Galactic Council was unlike anything anyone had expected. A calm, confident voice appeared on every channel, showing not aggression but assurance. "You have witnessed the results of underestimating a species you dismissed," the message said. "We did not act recklessly. We did not need to. We prepared, we adapted, and we will continue to protect ourselves as necessary. The council members were stunned. For decades, Earth had been laughed at, considered insignificant and dismissed as weak. Yet here it was, commanding the attention of the galaxy with quiet confidence rather than loud displays of force. Some members whispered in amazement, realizing that the humans had achieved what many civilizations could not. They had defended their planet and demonstrated power without firing a single visible shot in full engagement. On board hidden human fleets, pilots and commanders watched the communications carefully. They had not acted for glory or recognition. Their goal had always been protection, survival, and proving that humans could not be dismissed. Yet they also knew that this message would be the first time the galaxy understood the true nature of Earth's strength. It was calm, deliberate, and full of purpose, a warning without threat, a demonstration without arrogance. The Draconians reacted immediately. For the first time in generations, their once proud fleet hesitated. Commanders attempted to regroup, sending out messages to remaining ships hoping to restore confidence and order. But uncertainty had taken root. The Empire had relied on fear and intimidation for centuries, and now they faced a species that could not be frightened, that could not be easily seen, and that acted with intelligence and patience far beyond their expectations. Analysts in the Galactic Council debated how to respond. Some suggested immediate negotiation, fearing that any aggressive move might provoke the humans further. Others wanted to investigate secretly, sending reconnaissance ships into the solar system to understand what humans had done. Yet every attempt to probe was met with subtle interference. Human networks could detect intrusion attempts, countering them without revealing their location or fleet strength. Every action taken against Earth was anticipated, calculated, and neutralized in ways that left the galaxy astonished. Ordinary humans continued their lives on the planet below. Children went to school, workers commuted, and families gathered for meals. No one on the streets could see the invisible fleets moving silently above. But every citizen played a role indirectly. Energy networks, communication systems, and infrastructure supported the hidden fleets, allowing them to operate with unmatched efficiency. The strength of humanity was not just in weapons or technology. It was in the cooperation and intelligence of an entire species. The Draconian Empire began to realize that their arrogance had blinded them. For centuries they had laughed at Earth, believing it weak and inconsequential. Yet humans had taken decades of underestimation and turned it into preparation, patience, and ultimate strength. Entire fleets could disappear without leaving a trace. Energy systems could redirect attacks and shield vessels almost invisibly. Communication networks were encrypted and instantaneous. Every insult from the past had become motivation for advancement and ingenuity. From the perspective of other species in the galaxy, Earth had become a mystery. Traders, explorers, and scholars whispered stories of invisible fleets and silent power. Some speculated that humans had discovered technology far beyond what anyone had imagined. Others believed it was the intelligence, coordination, and patience of the species itself that made the difference. Regardless, one truth became clear. No one would ever underestimate Earth again. Human commanders monitored every move of the Draconian Empire. They knew that the enemy had lost confidence, that hesitation had replaced arrogance, and that the fear of the unknown had taken hold. But humans did not exploit this fear recklessly. They had learned the value of restraint. The goal was not to destroy for the sake of revenge or pride. It was to demonstrate that underestimation could have consequences, and to protect their planet and species for generations to come. Within the Galactic Council, discussions shifted from ridicule to caution. Humans had not yet revealed the full extent of their fleet or capabilities, but the message was clear. The species could not be ignored, dismissed, or dominated. Council members debated how to engage with Earth without provoking unnecessary conflict. Some urged diplomacy, others wanted to observe in secrecy. Everyone, however, understood that humanity had changed the rules of interstellar perception. Meanwhile, hidden in orbit and across distant colonies, humans continued to train, improve, and prepare. Engineers tested new systems, pilots refined maneuvers, and scientists studied alien technology to further strengthen the invisible fleet. Even as the galaxy watched in amazement, humans remained calm, focused, and deliberate. They had survived the first wave of confrontation and had emerged stronger, not because of brute force, but because of intelligence, coordination, and the patience to wait for the right moment. The Draconian Empire, shaken to its core, began sending smaller fleets cautiously to test Earth's defenses. Each attempt was carefully observed and neutralized without revealing the true strength of the humans. The Empire's arrogance had been replaced by fear. No one knew how far Earth's capabilities extended. Every move they made was met with calculated, precise countermeasures that maintained the planet's secrecy while demonstrating undeniable competence. Humans had learned a crucial lesson. Power does not always need to be visible to be effective. The galaxy had judged them by appearances, by size, and by perceived weakness. Yet all of those judgments were wrong. Humans had shown that intelligence, coordination, preparation, and patience could accomplish what brute force could not. Entire fleets could vanish, attacks could be neutralized, and the enemy could be left uncertain and fearful, all without exposing the full extent of their capabilities. Back on Earth, ordinary citizens remained unaware of the incredible events unfolding above. Life continued in a peaceful, almost normal rhythm. Yet in every home, school, and workplace, there was an undercurrent of pride, born from the collective effort of a species that had endured ridicule and disbelief for centuries. Every action, from maintaining infrastructure to supporting research and development, contributed to a hidden strength that no other species could fully comprehend. The silence from Earth continued, but it was no longer empty. It was deliberate. Every hidden fleet, every encrypted network, every calculated maneuver above the planet sent a clear message without words. Humans were not weak, fragile, or incapable. They had turned underestimation into preparation, ridicule into motivation, and invisibility into a weapon. The Galactic Council, once amused by the humans, now spoke with caution. The Draconian Empire, once mocking and arrogant, now acted with hesitation. For the first time in history, the galaxy had to acknowledge that Earth could no longer be dismissed. Humans had demonstrated a level of intelligence, coordination, and patience that no one had expected. They had survived, adapted, and revealed that the species could not be ignored. Humanity had proven that true strength was not always loud or visible. It was the calm, deliberate preparation, the ability to anticipate the enemy, and the unity of an entire species that made them formidable. The mockery of centuries had ended, not with anger or aggression, but with quiet, undeniable competence. The stage was set for the next chapter. Humans had survived, the Draconians were shaken, and the galaxy had begun to realize that Earth was no longer a planet to laugh at. The full extent of humanity's power had not yet been revealed, but the first demonstration had been enough. One thing was certain. Underestimation had become the Draconians' greatest mistake, and the humans of Earth would ensure that it was a lesson never forgotten. And as Earth's hidden fleets moved silently through space, as scientists refined strategies and pilots practiced maneuvers, one truth remained clear. Humanity had survived ridicule, learned from it, and transformed it into a force that would shape the galaxy's future. The silent, deliberate strength of Earth had become a say. The Draconian Empire had never faced such a challenge. Their massive fleet, once confident and mocking, had been shaken by humans who moved unseen, struck with precision, and vanished without a trace. Every assumption the Empire had made about Earth and its people had proven wrong. Confidence had turned into fear, arrogance into hesitation, and ridicule into disbelief. On board the Draconian command ships, panic spread like wildfire. Generals and admirals argued over strategy, struggling to understand how a species they considered primitive could have disappeared from their sensors entirely. Orders were issued, rescinded, and then reissued, but each attempt to locate the human fleet failed. Every sensor sweep returned only empty space. Every probe deployed to track Earth's vessels went missing or returned false readings. The Galactic Council watched in awe. This was a moment none of the oldest civilizations had ever anticipated. A small, underestimated planet demonstrating capabilities far beyond expectation. Scholars debated whether Earth had developed advanced cloaking technology, used highly sophisticated AI, or simply outsmarted every enemy tactic with intelligence and coordination. Whatever the method, the result was undeniable. The Draconian fleet was in chaos, and the humans remained untraceable. On Earth, humans continued their quiet preparation. The planet below seemed calm and ordinary, but above, hidden fleets moved like shadows. Pilots trained for maneuvers in invisible corridors. Engineers monitored every energy output, and scientists refined systems to maintain stealth and efficiency. The humans did not act recklessly or show aggression. Their goal was not conquest, but protection, survival, and the final demonstration that the galaxy could not dismiss them. It began with subtle strikes. Human vessels, still hidden, disabled Draconian sensor arrays, communication hubs, and propulsion systems with precision. The attacks were targeted, calculated, and almost invisible. Entire squadrons of Draconian ships were rendered immobile without a single visible battle. Energy weapons silently disrupted navigation systems, shields were bypassed with unseen techniques, and fleets found themselves unable to coordinate. Panic intensified. Reports from within the Draconian ranks spread rapidly. Commanders admitted that the humans had not attacked recklessly. They had outsmarted the Empire without direct confrontation. Ships that were supposed to support one another became isolated, drifting helplessly. Every attempt to regroup failed. Confusion turned into fear, and fear soon gave way to desperation. Human commanders observed calmly. There was no need for loud displays or aggression. Patience had been their greatest weapon. They had waited for this moment, analyzed every possible enemy move, and prepared their response with precision. Now the Draconians were trapped in their own arrogance, and humanity was ready to act. The first major engagement of the final confrontation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. From positions unseen, human fleets emerged with precision, targeting Draconian vessels one by one. Energy beams struck exactly where needed, disabling weapons and engines without destroying the ships completely. Missiles and drones moved silently, dismantling command centers and sensor arrays. The Draconians could not predict the attacks, could not respond in time, and could not understand how they were being outmaneuvered at every turn. On board Earth's hidden command ships, pilots coordinated in real time, reacting to enemy movements with unmatched speed. Engineers rerouted energy to shields and weapons, ensuring that every vessel remained fully operational while maintaining invisibility. Scientists monitored enemy tactics, providing instant updates to commanders. The humans acted as one organism, every part synchronized with every other part. The Draconian fleet, once the most feared in the galaxy, began to crumble. Ships collided accidentally in confusion. Some were rendered completely immobile and others were forced into retreat. The Empire's pride, built over centuries, shattered as the reality of human capability became clear. For decades, they had mocked Earth, believing it weak, fragile, and easily dominated. Now the same species had brought fear to the heart of their fleet. The Galactic Council observed silently, realizing that history was being rewritten. For the first time, a single species had demonstrated the ability to defend its homeworld and project unseen power across space, not through sheer numbers or overwhelming firepower, but through intelligence, preparation, and coordination. Scholars, soldiers, and diplomats alike understood that humanity had achieved something unprecedented. Meanwhile, Earth remained outwardly peaceful. Life continued as normal. Children played, workers went to their jobs, and families gathered without fear. The quiet streets, parks, and cities were a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding above the planet. Yet every human, from engineers and pilots to ordinary citizens contributing indirectly, had played a role in the preparation that led to this moment. The strength of humanity was not in a single vessel or weapon, but in the unity and intelligence of an entire species. The Draconians attempted one last desperate maneuver. They tried to regroup and retreat, hoping to salvage some control over the situation. Fleets moved chaotically, orders were shouted, and energy pulses filled the void. But every movement was anticipated. Humans had calculated each possible response, leaving the Empire no safe path. Vessels attempting escape were intercepted, disabled, and rerouted, trapped in invisible corridors that the humans controlled with precision. Panic spread through the Draconian ranks. For the first time, their fear of humans surpassed their confidence. Ships were abandoned, crews surrendered in confusion, and communications descended into chaos. Commanders could not coordinate, strategies failed, and the once mighty fleet began to disappear. One by one, entire squadrons vanished from sight. The humans did not destroy unnecessarily. They simply removed the Draconians' ability to act, leaving them powerless, trapped in an invisible web of intelligence and coordination. By the time the last Draconian ship attempted to escape, it was too late. Fleet after fleet had disappeared, leaving only isolated ships drifting helplessly. The Empire, which had once ruled its sector with pride and intimidation, had no choice but to withdraw. The humans of Earth had not only defended their planet, they had demonstrated dominance without reckless aggression, proving that intelligence, patience, and unity were more powerful than fear and numbers alone. Across the galaxy, news spread. Scholars, traders, and neighboring civilizations marveled at the unprecedented display of human capability. Earth, once a laughingstock, had become a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and determination. The Draconian Empire, humbled and fearful, could no longer project arrogance without consequence. Even the most skeptical members of the Galactic Council had to acknowledge that humanity had fundamentally changed the perception of what a species could achieve. On Earth, celebrations were quiet but profound. Humans understood the significance of what had occurred. It was not just a victory over a powerful fleet. It was a victory for patience, intelligence, and the collective effort of a species that had long been underestimated. Families gathered, engineers reflected on their work, and pilots shared quiet pride in the precision of their maneuvers. The planet had survived ridicule, threat, and intimidation, and had emerged stronger and wiser than ever before. In the aftermath, the Draconian Empire withdrew entirely from human-controlled space. Fleets once proud and arrogant vanished from the sectors near Earth, replaced by caution, fear, and respect. Rumors spread throughout the galaxy about the invisible fleets, the calculated strikes, and the quiet, deliberate intelligence of humanity. Every species that had mocked Earth for decades began to reconsider what it meant to underestimate anyone. Humanity's message to the galaxy was clear. The species could not be ridiculed, dismissed, or ignored. Strength was not always measured by the size of a fleet or the loudness of one's weapons. True power could be found in intelligence, preparation, patience, and the unity of a species working together for a single purpose. The invisible fleets, the coordinated strikes, and the calculated disappearance of the Draconian ships had proven that humans were capable of achieving what few civilizations had ever managed. As time passed, humans continued to expand their knowledge, refine technology, and explore space. The lessons of the conflict with the Draconians became a foundation for future generations. Pilots trained in the maneuvers that had confounded the Empire, engineers improved systems that had enabled stealth and precision, and scientists studied the strategies that had turned underestimation into power. The galaxy had learned to respect Earth, but humanity had learned an even more valuable lesson. Preparation, patience, and unity could achieve the impossible. The Draconian Empire, once the terror of nearby sectors, had disappeared from human space without leaving a trace. Entire fleets had vanished, disabled by intelligence and strategy rather than direct destruction. Their arrogance had been their undoing. Humanity had not only defended its planet, but had rewritten the rules of engagement, showing the galaxy that underestimating a species could be a fatal mistake. And on Earth, life continued as normal. Children played in parks, workers went to their jobs, and families gathered in peace. Above them, hidden fleets continued to move, silent and vigilant. Humanity had survived ridicule, threat, and intimidation, and had emerged